Hello, welcome to the Two Chicks Homestead Podcast. We are the Two Chicks. Yay!
Hi, I'm Nate.
And I'm Aaron, and we talk about homesteading and living on a small piece of land.
All right, welcome to episode 12.
Yep, what are we talking about today?
I think this is going to be a fun one. We're going to talk a little bit about ham radio.
Oh boy.
So, this may be a little bit of a rabbit hole for some, and we're going to apologize in advance, and we're going to try and make this as easy as we can.
Yeah. I usually need things explained to me like I'm 5, so if anybody else does, then I'll help you out.
Yep. And that's why you're going to be the explain it to me a little easier than how you just explained that.
Yep.
So we're going to get into a little bit of this. Basically, ham radio is communication over the airways using call signs and signal reports. Sometimes there's nets that you can talk back and forth. But it's basically a no strings attached way to communicate once you have your license.
Right. You don't have to pay a subscription or anything to use it.
Absolutely, yeah. It's all, you don't need the internet, you don't need your cell phone, you don't need anything. Just a radio that'll talk to another radio.
Yeah.
Alright, so we're going to be throwing some terms around here and there, and we'll just make sure we get that stuff out of the way right away. So there are 3 basically frequency segments that we're going to be talking about. You have high frequency, very high frequency, and ultra high frequency. The HF bands start at 3 megahertz and go to 30 megahertz. And the very high frequency goes from 30 megahertz to 300 megahertz. And the ultra high frequency goes from 300 megahertz to 3000 megahertz. So we will get a little bit into that, and you guys will kind of understand how these things work. So the main license that we're going to cover today is going to be your technician. So that's kind of your starting area, and that's the one you just passed, Aaron.
Yes. Yes, surprisingly, I passed it. No, I actually did really good. But it took me a long time.
It did. You did really good on the test, and I'm proud of you for doing that, because I know it was not easy for you.
Yeah.
You want to go a little bit into the licensing?
Well, I mean, I started last summer with a book that it's just trying to find how you learn. And the book was like a total bore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and so then you tried to get me to watch videos, which were also a total bore. Mm-hmm. But then I found that app, the Ham Study app.
Yep.
And it was being able to take, 10 minutes, just do a couple questions, take a practice test that really helped in the end.
Right. And that's what I noticed. As soon as you got on that hamstudy.org app, you did really, really good. And you picked it up really, really quick.
Yeah, because, I was reading questions that I had no idea what it was asking me, and I had no idea what any of the answers meant.
Right.
But you start learning the answers, which I know a lot of people don't like to just memorize, but then you get to learn.
Right, absolutely. And it is really backwards, and I don't agree with how it's done. I would rather you be able to get on and play and learn how to do it.
Yeah, I know.
And then go from there.
When we first started, our 8-year-old wanted to learn, and it was like, well, perfect, we'll learn at the same time. Mm-hmm. Well, I would read off these questions, and she would probably see the look on my face like, what the heck are you talking about? And I'd be like, I don't know, but here's the answer. Mm-hmm. And it's like, it's complete opposite on what we as homeschoolers teach. Like, we don't teach to memorize.
Right.
You
teach to know.
To learn, yeah.
Absolutely.
So it was really hard to get past that.
Right. And that's one thing I noticed. I mean, you guys were starting to get into it, and you guys both kind of glassed over.
Yeah. I mean, I couldn't explain anything.
Right. So I think we need to wait a little bit longer for our oldest to actually start comprehending some of this stuff.
Yeah.
I know you have an easier way to explain stuff than I do, and you're usually really technical.
Yeah. Yeah, and if I don't know how to explain it, then it's a wash.
Right. So with ham radio, there are 3 license levels. You just pass the technician. Then you have general, and then you have amateur extra. I actually just passed my amateur extra about a month and a half ago. I'd been a general for 6 months, and then I decided to upgrade to extra to be able to give a little bit more back and get a little bit more band space. But we'll go over some of that stuff on a later date. The testing questions really depending on how you guys or how you study can be relatively easy. I would say somebody with a electrical background could probably get it within 2 to 3 weeks, maybe a month. And I would say that was really when you got your hands on that app and you really started going through it. That's kind of about what it was, maybe a month.
Yeah, it was like I kept doing it, and I would get so frustrated that I would just be like, "Forget it, I'll come back." And then all of a sudden, it was like overnight, things just started clicking, and that's when it was like, okay, I can do this.
Right. And you were trying to get it in before April 19th. So this podcast is going to come out after April 19th. So one of the biggest things that changes on April 19th is the FCC is going to start charging for initial licenses and renewals and vanity call signs. So for a while, for years and years and years, you did not have to pay a fee to the FCC. You paid your little, $10 fee to the volunteer exam coordinators. They gave you the license, and that fee went to them for administering the test. Well, the FCC is now starting to charge $35 for your 10-year license. So I don't agree with it. I'm not a big fan of it. I think it's might hinder some people actually getting into ham radio. Some people that, like little kids that want to get into it but don't necessarily have the $35 to pay the FCC.
I think it's just one more thing that the government is taking from you. It's like, what are they going to do with it? They're not putting it back into ham radio.
And really, they're not, like, if this $35 fee was going to them policing the frequencies, like the people who are not doing nice things, then I could see it. But really, they use the excuse of they just upgraded the universal licensing system, which is fully automatic. The volunteer exam coordinators send in your testing, and the FCC dumps it into a computer, and it automatically spits out a call sign. And in your case, it was an hour and a half later after your email was sent into the FCC.
Yeah.
So government does not always work fast, but when it's automatic, it works fast. So that's my little rant on the $35 fee that just stepped in. I understand some people don't want to pay it, but it is part of the process, and that's how you want to, that's the only way you're going to be able to get your call sign, is you pass your test, and then you pay your fee, and then you get in. But the nice thing is they will not charge you as you upgrade. So if you take your tech and then you take your general at the same time, they're not going to charge you $35 twice. They're going to charge you the initial $35 for your tech and only your tech. And if you want to upgrade to general or extra within that first 10 years, they will not charge you. At least that is what the Amateur Radio Relay League has said is going to happen. Mm-hmm. So, one of the nice things about testing is you do not need to know Morse code anymore. They got rid of that maybe 15 years ago, maybe 20. I'm not exactly sure when, but it was long enough ago to make me go, okay, I think it's time to play the ham radio now. Because I was not going to learn Morse code at that point.
Not being told you have to.
Right. But now I want to. Now that I've gotten the extra, I want to start playing with it and see if I can learn how to do it. So as soon as you have your you pass your test, you'll send in your application, your Form 605, and then you pay your fee. The FCC will issue your call sign, and that's when you get to transmit on the radios. So once you have your technician, you're mostly going to play in VHF and UHF, and you get a little bit of frequencies down in HF. But mainly you have FM voice and a little bit of single sideband voice and a little bit of CW. It's Morse code. If you want to learn Morse code, you can go play. Your technician is really kind of the base license where most of your contacts are going to be countywide, citywide, that kind of area. You're going to be able to get into Simplex, which is talking radio to radio back and forth, or you can get into repeaters, which will push your signal out a little bit further. So now a repeater is where you talk on one frequency and it repeats your frequency through the machine, or repeats your voice through the machine and spits it out on another frequency. And that's kind of how that works. And once it usually spits it out at a higher power so you can get out a little bit further. Generally your simplex modes might give you 20 to 30 miles, and if you're talking through a repeater, really depending on height, it could go anywhere from 60 miles for our local repeater to 1,500 miles if it's mounted up on a mountain. So it just really all depends.
So how do you go about getting tested?
There's two different ways to do it. You can either do it through online testing, or you can go find your local club. So here in DeKalb County in Illinois, we have the Kishwaukee Amateur Radio Club, and that is the club that we belong to. I'm the president of the club, and we have a VEC team, or a VE team, that will gladly give you the test. We usually give them about once a month. We post the stuff on the club website, which is KARC-club.org, and you can go there and check out when we have our testing schedules and go from there. The other option you have, if you want to get it quickly, is what you did. Mm-hmm. And you want to talk a little bit about that?
Well, I went to the HRCC.
Yep, Ham Radio Crash Course.
On Discord, and they have a whole testing, I don't know what they're called, channel, the different...
Yep.
So a different channel. And you can just go in there and say, hey, I want to take my technician or general or whatever you're looking to do. And they say, okay, well, when do you want to take it? And it's pretty much they get it on, as close to that time and day that works for you. And so you just kind of pick a room, and they even say to use your bathroom. Yep. It's the room with the least amount of stuff in it.
Right.
And so you stand in your bathroom with your laptop, and you have to go around in a circle so they can kind of see all around you, and you just take the test, and it's the same exact questions as on the Ham Study app. Yep.
So the nice thing about that is they don't trick you with that. What you see in that hamstudy.org app.
It's not like school tests where it's like, here's your testing or your study questions, but now it's really this question.
Yeah.
It's exactly how it was written.
Mm-hmm. And you start to learn all the tricks and stuff. And once you get it figured out, it gets to be pretty easy.
Yeah.
You want to talk about how your testing session went?
It went, I was nervous, obviously, because it's a test, and I don't do testing well. But the guy I talked to, Dave, I don't know his call sign, but he was in there, And so he kind of coordinated everything, and it went so easy. Like, I mean, he went through every step, and there was no, like, questioning what I was doing.
Mm-hmm.
And what was really cool at the end was, you know, after I was done and we were all done, he sent me a message and said, I just want to let you know, I heard you were nervous. You know, at the last second, I asked a female VE to come in, or VEC to come in. VE.
Mm-hmm.
Did that help you feel more comfortable? And I was honest and said I didn't really think about it. I think I was just overall nervous. But the fact that he thought of that, you know, me being a woman,
Mm-hmm.
having a woman on the team that night was like, wow, you know, you really thought of all these little details just to make
Mm-hmm.
someone more comfortable. And I think they kind of understand that, you know, ham radio can kind of be seen as a bunch of old grumpy men sitting around complaining about whatever.
Yeah.
You know, it's different having young people and young women coming in and wanting to do it.
Right. Yeah, I mean, and you're starting to see a lot of young women
Mm-hmm.
come into it and start doing it.
Yeah.
And you're seeing a lot of young kids come in and do it too.
Mm-hmm.
And you got to keep the paces up with, you know, the older people that are stepping away from the radios at this point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he even mentioned that he had a younger girl want to take the test, and he made sure that there was a woman.
I think he said he had all three.
Were they
VEs.
all three? I couldn't
Yeah.
remember. That, you know, to have the parent be able to see that it's not just a bunch of, you know,
guys
on there.
Absolutely.
That, you know, they really look out to make sure everybody's comfortable and
Yeah.
want to do it.
Yeah, and the VE team that we have is a bunch of really nice guys.
Mm-hmm. And they're all pretty. I mean, there's all ages.
Yeah, it's all ages, anywhere from mid-20s up to maybe I'd say 55, 60, somewhere in that range.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, they're all really nice guys, really smart. They know their stuff, and it's just kind of nice to chit-chat with them.
Yeah. And I mean, I haven't noticed, you know, any like stereotypical male, you know, you know, I'm so good at this, and, you know, you're just a little lowly woman, you know, coming in on this, but I'm sure it's out there.
Well, you haven't gotten on 80 meters yet, so we're not going to worry about that.
Yeah.
That's usually where most of the complaining is
Yeah.
on 80 meters. So, but that's neither here nor there. You don't have to worry about that until you get your general.
Yeah.
And even at that, you just spin the dial or sit there and laugh at them.
Right.
So for the longest time, we had scanners at the house.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you remember that.
Yes, we used to sit on our balcony in our apartment and just listen for a long time.
Yeah.
Because it was always busy.
Oh, yeah. And it was fun. And that's pretty close to about where the ham bands are. Everybody can listen in on ham radio. Ham radio is always done in the clear. It's the only time it's ever encrypted is if you are communicating with a satellite to send prompts to the satellite. That's the only time you can ever encrypt the communication. Other than that, it's always done in the clear. You can understand everything. You can't hide stuff. So it's nice to know that it's not a dumpster fire, so to speak, like CB radio. It's very professional. Everybody acts polite for the most part. Everybody has a call sign they are given, and you have to give that call sign out. It's essentially giving out your name over the radio, and you're required to do it.
Yeah, I mean, and you can look it up, and your address is associated with this.
Right, absolutely. I mean, it's just something you have to get used to. I mean,
Yeah.
you can get a P.O. box, no problem.
But like I was, you know, we were talking about getting, our vehicle license with it, and you're showing me this website that just has our address, But the more I thought about it, before we even got into this, like years ago driving, and I saw a ham license plate, I never thought to go and like look it up.
No.
So, I mean, if you know what you're seeing, you probably are either a ham, and your address is also out there.
Right.
So it's not...
Right. I mean, the nice thing about having the address out there is if you want to make communication out, if you want to contact the ham after you talk to them on the radio, you have their address. You can send them a letter in the mail. You can send them a QSL card, which is a card that confirms the contact. You actually got one of those from one of our friends a couple towns over for your first contact.
Yep.
And I got one from a guy that was doing Parachute Mobile. Yes, that is a thing. Parachute Mobile. That's exactly what it sounds like. The guy's up in a parachute, jumping out of a plane, playing ham radio on his way down to the ground. That was pretty cool.
Yeah.
So you can make you know who you're talking to, and it's really nice because you can look them up. If they give you your call sign, you can tell what part of the country they're from. You could tell if they're not from this country, if you're talking to somebody in Canada or France or Italy, Germany, Russia, any of those countries, you don't know who you're going to pick up on the radio one day. And that's more HF. When you get into general, you'll get that stuff.
Yeah.
But your technician stuff is usually close in UHF, VHF. Then you're going to use more simplex and more repeaters.
So how do you even know what kind of radio to get?
So I've always looked at, you want to have at least 3 radios. You want to have a handheld. You want to have something at home, be it a base station radio or a mobile radio that you can use at home. I have a Baofeng UV5R for our handhelds. That's the same one you have. And then we have a proper base station down in the basement. It's an ICOM IC821. And it's an older radio, but it works really good. And I had to do a little bit of a fix on it one day. And that was kind of fun to figure that out.
Yeah.
And then I have, in the cars, we both have 50-watt mobiles. They're TYT quad bands with the appropriate antennas. So I would say you want at least your 3. You want a mobile, you want in your car, you want a base for your home, and you want some kind of handheld when you're out walking around. And sky's the limit on price. You can get handhelds that are $25, or you can get handhelds that are $800.
Yeah.
And those $800 handhelds are kind of nice because they will do APRS, which is automatic packet reporting system, which is ham radio GPS.
And it's also on the test. That question.
Yes. So ham radio GPS, I actually use that with going down to Tennessee. I ran the little $25 handheld and my phone for a little bit to see if it would work. I couldn't get it to work because it's a $25 radio and I'm using my cell phone.
Yeah.
But the handhelds are really good if you're out hiking or something and you're up in the mountains and you can get into a repeater that does APRS.
So, like, the radios in our car can have the 2 stations listening.
Right, the dual channel.
So one of them we have the local repeater, and the other one is the
14652, 2 meter calling frequency.
So if you're driving anywhere, you can talk to someone on
Yes.
that. Like, you don't need to make sure you're in the right area.
Correct. Yeah. So 14652 is your 2-meter national calling frequency. So that is the frequency you want to jump on if you're running, state to state to state and going across country. If you are on that, chances are somebody is going to be on that listening for you.
And they'll be in whatever area you're in.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you're going to be within a 30-mile range, more than likely somewhere between 10 and 30 miles from you. Could be closer. Could be the car 5 cars behind you.
Right.
So, it just all really depends. But that's the 2-meter frequency is 146,520. Then you also have 70 centimeters, which is 4446.000. That's the next step, like the next frequency up for national. We don't do a whole lot of 70 centimeter around here. It's mostly 2 meters in our area.
So when we're going down to LFTN, then we'll just be we'll have our repeater, but we'll only work for so long.
Yep.
And then we'll have that 2 meter.
Yeah, we'll start to lose the repeater probably about 70 to 80 miles south of here. But if we leave at 1 o'clock in the morning, nobody's going to be on the repeater.
That's true.
So, last year when I ran down, I loaded Indiana, Illinois, Kentucky, and Tennessee, all the 2-meter repeaters in the radio. And so that way I had everything in there. I was good to go. If I had an issue, I could use that. If I didn't have cell coverage, I didn't know what cell coverage was going to be like once I get down south. And it just, everything worked out fine. But if you think ahead like that, 9 times out of 10, somebody is always listening to the repeater.
Right.
If that fails, you have the national calling frequencies.
Yeah.
So just as some use case stuff that we have seen over the years, or over the past year or so that I've been in this, last summer, or really last fall, we had that tornado that came relatively close to us. It came through Maple Park, which is about 8 or 9 miles north of us. We knew about this line of storms that was coming through, and I also know that a couple of the repeaters in this area they're used by the weather spotters. So all those trained weather spotters running around chasing storms might have their ham radio license, and they use the repeaters to talk to each other. So a really good idea would be to figure out what repeaters they're using and listen in on those repeaters. Don't transmit over the top of them, of course. You don't want to interfere with them. But we knew about a tornado that was north, about 8 miles north of us, heading away from us at the time, before the National Weather Service did. Because they were, you had the storm spotters on the storm, tracking the storm for the past 30, 40 miles, thinking it was going to be, a major storm, and the tornado dropped, and I heard on the repeater that there's debris in the air and the tornado's on the ground, and 30 seconds later the National Weather Service issued the tornado warning. So that is a real use case scenario, is if you have bad weather in your area, listen to the repeaters. Get some way to do that. And there's a lot of options out there. You can do website-based stuff, or you could actually just get a scanner. And a lot of your relatively inexpensive scanners will do the ham bands.
Yeah.
So another thing to watch out for is if you're in the hurricane prone areas of the U.S., there's also the Hurricane Watch Net, which will be that's on high frequency. It's kind of down in the 20 meter and the 40 meter bands. And we'll kind of cover those bands later, but you can kind of listen in on that and see what the storm's doing, and people will report in with their storm damage or what it's like down there by them. And then also another one is NOAA radio is pretty close to the ham band, so we can get NOAA radio on the 2 meter 70 centimeter radio that we have downstairs.
And what is that?
That is the UHF VHF. So NOAA radio is your weather radio, and those frequencies are right around 162.000, somewhere in that range. I think ours is 162.400, if I remember, services our area. And that is the constant weather radio. Your national weather radio things that throw all the warnings out and get really obnoxious in the middle of the night sometimes. So, and then another use case scenario is emergency communications after a disaster, be it Katrina or Michael or any of the other major hurricanes that came through. 9 times, or even tornadoes, 9 times out of 10, there were hams there communicating with the outside to get relief supplies in. And that is something I wouldn't mind getting involved in. It's never a good time to have it happen, but it's always a good time to step up and try and help. So that's another thing you can get involved in. So that's more the serious side of things, but some of the fun stuff. So one of the fun things that I thought was really cool, the International Space Station has a amateur radio repeater on it. And you can take your little 5-watt handheld and talk to astronauts up at the International Space Station.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. Mm-hmm. They're not always on the radio, but when they do, you may get a contact here or there.
Yeah.
And you can get a special QSL card from them. The other thing is you can use the repeater and talk to other hams down on the ground. So you can send your signal up to the International Space Station, and it'll bounce it back towards the ground, and you can make contact with another ham, 2,000 miles away from you, just by using the International Space Station.
But only for that short amount of time.
Yes, it is like 8 minutes, and there are tons of other people trying to get in at the same time. It is very hard. It's challenging, but when you can do it, it's pretty cool. The other fun thing, now this is something I've done before, is a fox hunt. So fox hunting is radio direction finding. So this is really good for trying to find a signal, be it somebody's radio who's broken and jamming a frequency, or somebody who is transmitting out in the wilderness that is hurt. You can take your radio and go find them based on their signal. And that's kind of a fox hunt. So we put these little transmitters out in the woods, and we walk around with our handhelds and a Yagi Uda antenna attached to it, which is a directional antenna, and we go find it.
And this is an antenna that you just made.
Yes. So this is a $5 antenna I made out of some PVC and a tape measure. And I cut out the tape measure to the size and taped it to the PVC and made my own antenna.
Yeah, and you did that with our oldest last year.
Yep. We got in the car and we went hunting for a transmitter, and we got really close to it. We got within, I would say, 100 yards before I should have stuck with my gut and kept going down the trail, but I didn't think it would be back there. And had I kept walking down that trail, I would have found it. Well,
next time.
Yep. So, And the other fun thing is I mentioned kind of the parachute mobile. That was another really cool thing. There's a guy in our area that jumps out of Rochelle. You can see he puts videos out. It's Carlos Felix, and his YouTube channel is Life at Terminal Velocity. And his call sign is Kilo Delta 9 Oscar Lima November. And he puts his videos up from his jumps of him making contacts. And he jumps out of the plane at 14,000 feet, gets down to about 12,000 feet, throws a wire antenna out behind him after he deploys the parachute, and he's floating down to the ground, and he makes a bunch of contacts. And it's really cool to see that. Another fun one in wintertime is the Winter Heat Simplex event, which is nationwide. And that's where you try and make as many contacts with hams using the simplex mode, radio to radio, not using repeaters, that you can. And my longest contact, and I'm hoping I do better next year, but my longest contact was 30 miles down to the south. Once I get the antenna up a little bit higher and get a nicer antenna, I should be getting a little bit further out, because some of these guys were pulling off 160 to 200 mile contacts, which is a lot further than I was doing. So we'll see how that goes.
And we'll be doing the field day one here at
Yep.
the Two Chicks Homestead.
Yep, we will be hosting Summer Field Day, and that is a contest where you guys can, being licensed, you can jump on the air with the club or by yourself, and you set up out in the field for 24 hours, and you try and make as many contacts as you can. And it's all done with a battery or a generator or however you can get on the air.
Yeah.
And it's supposed to simulate emergency communications. Like a tornado comes through and takes down power, and you have to go set up all your antennas and help with relief efforts. So that's kind of the story behind that.
Yeah, so if you're in the area, you can always stop by. We'll post something in our group or on Facebook. And
Yep, we'll post some stuff up, and anybody can swing by, and we might even have a GOTA station as well.
what's that?
Get on the air. So that's where you can sit down and talk on the air if you'd like. So, and that is, we will not need to have a license with that, because we will be licensed, and you'll be using the club call sign.
Okay, so someone who's not licensed can
Yes.
get on. Okay, got it.
Yes. So we'll more than likely have a GOTA station, get on the air station.
So you can just try it out.
Yep. Okay. See if you like it and see how it is. It'll probably be local communications, maybe through the repeater or 146520 or something like that.
Okay.
So it should be fun. Be a whole bunch of people here, and we'll play radio. Is there anything else you got?
Well, I noticed that, because I always like to find Facebook groups. I know that Facebook is like a mess, but I found one that was just ham radio women, and it was just kind of nice to go in there and see other people like me, doing radio stuff.
Yep.
So it's kind of nice to get away from the the larger groups and just kind of pinpoint.
Exactly. And they might have their own net, so we'll have to figure that out.
Yeah.
So, and if that's the case, we might be buying you a new radio put down in the shack so you can get into your net.
Well, yeah, we'll see. I still haven't been on the radio much. It's still very new and strange, and
Yep. I understand. And mic fright is a real thing.
yeah.
I have it. I still have issues keying the radio up.
Yeah.
I will admit that. Because I don't want to make a mistake.
Right.
But then you realize nobody's really going to yell at you if you make a mistake.
Yeah. They'll just let you know if it's really bad.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And then you won't ever do it again.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, everybody in the hobby wants to get you in the hobby.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because the more people that do it, there's more people to talk to.
Exactly. And there are, I think, 700,000 hams in the United States,
Mm-hmm.
which, I mean, is not a lot, but it's a lot.
Yeah.
And that's, all 50 states, all the counties in the entire United States have them.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it could be every single city has at least one, I think.
Yeah.
So you just run into them and you make some contacts and you make some friends.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the cool things that I remember when I was starting to get into general, when I got into HF, was a guy up in Calgary. And I made contact with him when I got my general. And he's a guy that likes to make contacts with other people. And he specifically searches out new generals or people who newly upgraded. And being that he's on high frequency, he's usually on 20 meters in the general class band. So a technician can't get down to him. So you got to upgrade to at least general. But if you make contact with him, he will save your name and your information. And from then on forward, as you make contacts, he will ask you what you're doing and how your ham radio journey is going. I've talked to him 3 times. And when I brought it up last time, he congratulated me on getting my extra without even me saying it, because he knew, based on my call sign, where I was on my journey. And once I had the extra, when he pulled it up, it says underneath my call sign that I was an amateur extra. Well, he had written down last time he talked to me, I was a general. So he congratulated, me on doing that. And then we got talking a little bit back and forth. And I told him that you had got your technician. So he wrote that down. He asked me for your call sign. So he wrote your call sign down underneath my old call sign. Or maybe even put a new entry in. And he sent you congratulations for getting your technician. And is looking for you when you get your general.
Okay.
So he would like to make contact with you.
All right.
So we'll get you on. He's pretty easy to find. He's a nice big signal.
Yeah. Well, I'll keep working on it.
Yep. I have faith. I think you'll be able to do it.
Yeah. It'll just happen.
Mm-hmm.
I just got to do it.
Yep.
Make the time.
Absolutely. So once you get playing with the radios a little bit more, it's easier.
Yeah.
So a lot of it is, it's a lot of technical mumbo jumbo to start with.
Mm-hmm.
And then once you get your hands on a radio, that's when the real fun begins.
All right.
So, but I think that's about it for tonight.
All right.
So we'll have another episode on ham radio. We'll probably go over a little bit of general down the road. This was kind of more technician related stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So kind of lower bands. And if anybody has any questions, they can always email us at info@twochickshomestead.com.
Mm-hmm.
And find us on some of the social media. We have Float, the Facebook page, the Facebook group, and we'll just kind of go through and post some stuff. And if you have any questions, give us a yell, and we'll see what we can do to answer it.
Yeah. So this episode will be coming out a little bit earlier because when this is out tomorrow, we'll be getting up at the crack of dawn and making our way down to Tennessee for the Living Free in Tennessee workshop.
Yep. So, hot tip for anybody, as we go down through southern Illinois, we'll be on 146520.
Yeah.
Same with Kentucky and Tennessee. So, we'll throw a call out and see if we get anybody.
Yeah.
And we'll, if we talk to you and you mention the podcast,
You win a prize. No, I don't know.
We'll mention you on the call.
Yeah.
We'll mention you on the podcast, and we'll figure out something.
Yeah.
So maybe it'd be a QSL card.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, I think we have to actually get those now since I've changed my call sign and you got yours. So yeah, we need to get new QSL cards.
Yeah, we'll have to look into it.
Yep, I know somebody who does them. Actually found somebody who actually does really nice ones.
Okay.
So, but yeah, we will go from there, and I think the one after this might be actually what we did during the workshop.
Probably. We'll probably be hyped up and
Yep,
ready to talk about it.
absolutely. So we will catch you guys next time.
All right. See you on the homestead, where something is always growing, eating, or cooking.